right, you guys, it's episode 45 of War Stories. And without further ado, I'm going to get straight back into it. This is the second episode that I'm dropping tonight. Let's see if I can do that hat trick, man. Maybe I'll drop an Inner Demons or another war story after I'm done with this one. But anyway, let me keep it going. So I'm going to take you guys back to 2004. I want to say this was the beginning of 2004, sometime around either January or February. So again, for some of you that are not familiar with how I moved out to San Jose and some of the things that were going on when I first moved out there, let me just try to lay a little bit of the groundwork for you guys. So in 2003, I paroled from Corcoran. And when I paroled from Corcoran, basically I got out and I had fell out of contact with pretty much everybody at that point, because everybody that I was plugged in with prior to going in on that last violation, they had all been stripped, demoted, they were in trouble, they had dropped out, something was going on with them. Rab at that time, Conejo from Sacramento, the same Conejo that got caught up in this Operation Quiet Storm, the same Conejo that's indicted for the state branch, was my channel. So, you know, prior to going into Corcoran in 2003, I was linked up with Conejo, and then he got stripped, he got in trouble, so I lost contact with him. Now, I didn't have another channel at that time. I had to plug back in. So what ended up happening is I got out the first time I was off parole as an adult in 2003. I paroled from Corcoran, got out, was like, you know what? At that time, prior to going in on that last violation, I was out in Salinas. I was functioning in that regiment. I got out, I was like, you know what? There's no reason for me to be out here in Salinas now. I'm not on parole. I'm not going to stay out here. It's too hot. There was too much shit going on. That Cap Saloon incident was just wrapping up. Operation Black Widow was still in effect. So I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go back up to Ukiah, pick up a lunch pail, and just kick on back. Those were my plans. However, it didn't work out like that. You know, I'm not gonna lie, you know, a part of me at that time wanted to just kind of like slide on back and fade out right off into the fucking sunset, because too many people were getting caught up at that time. There was too much going on. Shit was just, a lot of things were going on within the organization, and it was discouraging. Some of it was discouraging. I didn't want to get caught up in a lot of it. I had to go through Corcoran. I had to strip the regimental commander over there at the time. It was Carlos Terraza, as you guys might have remembered. He did a interview on Josh's channel, Josh meaning Homie Hangout. He did an interview on his channel, the only active NF member I've ever seen do an interview on YouTube. He did an interview on his channel about a year ago, and I guess after that he was told not to never cross those lines again. But anyway, respects to Carlitos, got nothing bad to say about him. Unfortunately, I was given the task of going to Corcoran and stripping him, putting somebody else in his position as the regimental commander, because there was just a lot of things going on. He was being investigated. It all worked out, but I had the unpleasant task of going in there into a prison that he had for almost 10 years, established, had a lot of C's under him. Sombras was one with the big mouth. And, you know, he had his primo over there. I believe, what was his name? I can't even remember his primo's name, but that's another story for another day. I'll get into that, because that does fall in to the war story category. Just everything that happened when I went into Corcoran and had to strip him. Anyway, so I get out. I don't got no contacts. I don't got no channels. I could have reached out to Conejo, but he was stripped and I was told not to. Anyway, the way that I would end up getting back into contact with the organization, with leadership, was, so I went out to Ukiah, went back up there with Vicky. And, you know, like I said, my thing was to just maybe get a job, just kind of like just fade out for a minute, because it was hot. I knew the feds were on me, because when I was in the Mendocino County Jail, they tried to come up and play that fucking game where you're in trouble, you know, you want to help yourself. I believe I talked about this before in the past, but it's just a game that they were running on everybody. They ran it on Nicoya when he was in San Quentin. They were pulling out a lot of homies. I think they did it to Listo, Jason Bachmeyer from Santa Rosa, and some other cats that they were looking at as part of Operation Black Widow. Now, they came up there to the Mendocino County Jail and tried to run that same trip on me. We got information that you're in trouble. No, you didn't. You know, this is from a reliable source. Oh, no, it wasn't. You know what I mean? It was just a game that they were playing. They brought a file with them. They opened it up. It had all my letters that I was sending up to the Bay. They opened it, closed it, just so I could see it. It was a scare tactic, but I didn't bite. I was like, you know what? That's cool. If it's true, if there's any truth to what you're saying, when I get to San Quentin, you know, it's family business. I'll deal with it when I get there. But thanks, but no thanks. So anyway, that right there just let me know that the feds were on my ass, which I already knew. So anyways, I get up to Ukiah. I'm up there. I try to get a job. Nothing really works out. I'm just up there kind of just laying back on R&R. Anyways, I still maintain contact with a lot of homies from the Salad Bowl because we just, some of those homies I was real close with. Bubba, Wino, Baki, you know, little Shorte, Jacinto Ruelas, Animal. There were a lot of homies just from out there that I knew that I had a lot of love and respect for. Bobby, Barbecue Bob, the list goes on and on, Smokey. So anyways, Baby Joker was out there in Watsonville. So, you know, because I was in contact with these guys, I still maintain contact with them. Obviously, when they sent a visitor up there to visit, at that time, Pinky, Skip was there, Corny, they reached out to them and were like, hey, you guys know where B's at? And they were like, yeah, you know, he just reached out. He's out there in Mendocino County. And they were like, hey, tell him to plug back in. Tell him to send a visitor. We're waiting for him to tap back in. So Bubba gets at me. He's like, hey, brother, you know, I just went up there, had somebody go visit Corny. He wants you to plug in. So I'm like, cool. So I sent a visitor up there. And the directives that I got were basically, we need you to relocate to San Jose. We need that regiment running. We need to get that regiment up and back on track. So I basically had to tell my girl, hey, we gotta pack it up and we gotta fucking go to San Jose. It's not basically I don't got a choice. It's not open for debate. You either coming with me or you're not. And you know, she was a trooper, man. You know, she wasn't really too fond of the idea of leaving, you know, her family and everybody that she knew up there in Mendocino County, but she understood that I had prior commitments before we hooked up and that I was obligated to fulfill certain responsibilities. And this was one of them. When they rung that bell, you know, I had to respond. There was nothing that I could do. I couldn't say, nah, man, you know, I can't go out there. Nah, it doesn't work like that. It's a lifetime commitment. And this is something that, you know, when you get a directive like that, it's not nothing that can be debated. So I did what I had to do. We've fucking put our 30-day notice in to the place that we were at out there, got a U-Haul, loaded everything up, and went out to San Jose. Now, prior to going to San Jose, I had reached out to Silencio that's on death row, Bobby Lopez. I reached out to his girl. Her name was Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo. All the homies from San Jose know her. She's was in the mix for a long time, you know, facilitating a lot of the communications that were going on out there. She was a major help to a lot of us. She was Silencio's wife. She stayed with him for number of years. I don't know how many, was close to like 10 years, maybe even more than that, until eventually, you know, they cut ties and separated. But at the time, you know, I had went through San Quentin. They shot me her hookup, told me to get in touch with her and that she could be of major help, which she was. So when they told me I had to go out to San Jose, the only contact that I had out there on the books at that time was J-Lo. So I called her up. Jay, I'm out here in Mendocino County. I need a fucking spot out there. Can you help me? Can you help me find a hotel, not a hotel, an apartment, a house out there? Do you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that can help me get in somewhere? So she was like, matter of fact, I do. This complex that I'm living in, there's like 2 open units. She was like, I know the landlord that, runs this complex. He's hella cool. I could probably get you in right here. And I'm like, man, if you could do that, it would be a major help. So she got at him. He was open to the idea. It was like, come down here this week, check out the unit. If you like it, you got it. So, we shot down there that same week, checked it out. It was cool. Now, keep in mind, I knew nothing about this neighborhood. I'd never lived in Campbell. So it was on Impala. It was on Impala in Winchester in Campbell. Didn't know nothing about the neighborhood. When I went out there, it looked like it was a cool spot, but you never know. You don't know where you're moving or what type of neighborhood that is. Sometimes when when it gets dark, that neighborhood comes alive at night, and there's all kind of different people out there. I didn't know if it was a Norteño stronghold, a Sureño stronghold. I didn't know what it was, but it looked like it was a cool spot. So I tell the guy, yeah, we want it, man. So we ended up moving in. I jump in a U-Haul. We fucking lug everything to San Jose. Bam, we're up in there. So let me speed it up a bunch of months. So this was around, I want to say, June of 2003, sometime around that time. And I'm going to spin forward about 6 months into the beginning of 2004. Now, in the beginning of 2004, by that time, I was there for a bunch of, for multiple months. It'd probably been about 6-7 months. And I kind of got a feel of the neighborhood at that time. I understood where I was at. And a lot of homies that were coming through were like, damn, boy, why are you out here? This neighborhood, this is a Sureño neighborhood. Like, bro, on the other side of the fence over there on Cadillac, like, bro, there's a big Sureño stronghold right here, bro. You ain't never had no issues. And at that time, I hadn't. I used to see cats when I would come out. I'd be in my carport and I would see cats, blued up, and I would see Southsiders out there. But this is where I lay my head. So I'm not going to fucking do nothing on my doorstep. I used to see them come in and out, and they were all right there. None of them used to say shit to me. I do my thing, they do their thing, but I wasn't going to shit on my doorstep and have, that come back to my apartment. And they know where I was living. But unfortunately, one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. Eventually, a lot of the guys that were functioning under me in the regiment at that time would come over. My apartment was a meeting place. I would use that to have a lot of the regimental members come over, and in my carport, we talk about things. We use it as a place to get together to just discuss different things that were going on out there at that time. Now, because I had that kind of activity going through there, eventually it caused problems. So, without getting into all that, going into all the details of it, I would end up renting another apartment in that complex right next door to where I was living. And that apartment I would use as a safe house. That was the whole purpose for getting it. Put all my guns in there to keep all my dope. Even though I wasn't on parole, I just wasn't feeling too good about having 30-40 ounces all bagged up in my apartment, even though I didn't have to worry about a random parole search. And still, I wanted to have that shit somewhere else. And a lot of it was out of respect for my girl that was living with me at that time. She understood, and she would never speak on it, but still she would see certain things like that, and she didn't want that shit around the past. So I respected that. That was the whole purpose why I got this apartment. But that would end up leading to another chain of events. So one of my regimental members at that time was out there running from parole, and his girl was pregnant. And I took this youngster in as you know, he was like family to me. He was, I don't want to say the wrong thing as far as like him being a son to me, but we had a relationship. I mean, I'm older than him, and I took him up under my wing. I embraced him. I wanted to see him and his girl make it. I wanted him to be out there for the birth of his daughter. So I was like, bro, I'm gonna put you up in this apartment. You know, stay with your girl, man. I'll pay the rent. I'll put food on the table. Just stay home, bro. Stay home so that you can make the birth of you could be out here for the birth of your daughter. That's not something that you want to miss. I missed mine, so I know how it affected me. I didn't want him to go through the same thing. Keeping him there, you know, was a good thing, and that was the whole reason for it. However, he was young. He still had that you know, he was still banging out there. That was still his thing. So, you know, him being there and then having this fucking idiot young buck, he calls himself Young Buck now, Angel Martinez from Tulare County, from Goshen, having him over there, you know, to keep security on the apartment and just to have him over there sometimes because the fool used to just like to come over there and chill. But, you know, those guys would be out in front of the apartment and they'd be telling little Sureños to take off their belt and shit like that. And when I found out about it, I'm like, bro, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to be out here doing that type of shit. We're out here functioning in the regiment. You're not out here gangbanging. And if you're gonna be gangbanging, don't do it in front of my fucking apartment. I gotta deal with the shit that anything that you start out here on the streets, that shit's gonna come back to my apartment. You're gonna go home tonight. You're not gonna have to deal with that. So telling motherfuckers to take their belt off, man, grow the fuck up. Stop doing that dumb shit. But you know, it was too late. He was out there doing that type of stupid shit, and one thing led to another, that led to another, that led to another. And somebody got socked up, somebody got beat up, somebody got hit, and that led to my apartment getting shot up. And it led to me getting in a fucking full-fledged shootout with this man. Shout out to the Southsiders out there in San Jose. Shout out to the Southsiders in Campbell. Shit happens. I'm not tripping, and that shit's all water under the bridge. But I ended up getting into a shootout with these individuals. I had Young Buck over there. For those of you that know him and those of you that, you know, think that he's the real deal now that he got recruited, you know, I'm not a hater, but I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, man. This dude was over there at my apartment to keep security on my apartment. Had directives. I put 15 guns in his hands, him and another homeboy, Willow, and their directives were to secure the apartment. That's why they were there. They weren't there to tell motherfuckers to take their belts off. They were there to keep security on my apartment because I knew that something was going to come back. I knew that these guys were going to come back and try to hit my apartment because of the stupid shit that they were doing. So he had 15 guns at his disposal. He had directives of what to do if they came back. They come back, you guys secure the front. I got the side. I had another 10 to 15 guns in my apartment. So between both of us, there was like 30 guns. Anyway, the night that I got into a shootout, I was the only one that got off. Willow and Angel, you know, they can talk to their blue in the face about why they didn't do nothing or they didn't expect it. They didn't know what was going on. When I opened up my front door, both of these dudes were squatting down. Like they were squatting to avoid gunfire or something. It's funny when I think about it now, but I was fucking pissed the night that this happened. These dudes didn't bust a grave. These guys are both hermanos that are part of the regiment, and they completely fucking just straight pissed on themselves. So it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not trying to hate on anybody. I'm not trying to say anything foul about nobody. I'm just giving you guys the facts. That's what happened. I was the only one that got off that night. Them motherfuckers came to my house and tried to shoot my shit up, and they did. But anyway, that situation right there, not to get caught up in that whole situation, but that led to another chain of events. So well, this situation actually happened right before that. So all these things were related to the shit that they were doing in front of my apartment. So one day and there's a reason why I told you guys that part of it, because really it's really not relevant to this part of the story, but later on it's gonna be relevant. You'll know why I kind of went into that. Anyway, on this day that this incident happened, I went to a grocery store that's 2 blocks down. It's right there on Winchester. It's 2 blocks down from Impala. You guys got to remember too, Cadillac was where their stronghold was. This is where all the Sureños used to kick it at. Sometimes I would see them in that area on Cadillac. Sometimes I would see them on Impala. Sometimes I would see him at the store, that store that I used to go to that I've been to 1,000 times, but nothing ever happened because I would never try to get in to any shit that close to my pad. I had somebody living with me and I had to think about that. Anyway, on this day that I went to the grocery store, which is 2 blocks down on Winchester, I go down there like I had 1,000 other times. And when I go into the store, I think I had on a red slingshot, a white beater. And I remember seeing this cat walk in. It was about 6'2", 6'3", big, tall, lanky motherfucker, man. Covered with tattoos, had tats on his face, tats on his neck. I don't remember seeing him walk in. I just remember crossing paths with him. But as he walked by, somebody like that, they obviously, I caught sight of him and he's on my radar. Looks like, again, I don't know if he's a Southsider, don't know if he's a homie, but when we walk by each other, his fool bangs on me straight up. He's like, "Hey, homie, what's that Southside like?" And I'll be honest with you guys, man. Rarely have I ever been banged on like that. And I wasn't expecting it. And just the way that he did it, it kind of fucked me up for a minute. I was like, man, did that really just happen right now? When he said it, it's like I stopped for a minute and then I turned around and he was walking away, but he turned around, he was watching me, and I was like, "Hey, homie, is that right? Hold that thought." So when he said that, I got on the phone because the homie was at the apartment, the homie that, I wanted to try to keep out so that he could be there for the birth of his daughter. I called him up and I'm like, "Hey, bro, I need you to bring one of them things right now." He's like, "What's up, bro?" I'm like, "Bro, there's a Southsider out here. We got to get him." You know what I'm saying? So anyway, hey, shout out to the Southsiders out there in Campbell. Shout out to the Southsiders out there in San Jose. It's water under the bridge. It's something that happened, but it is what it is. Anyway, so he's like, "I'm there, bro. I'm there. I'm on my way." So when this dude sees me on the phone, he's probably thinking, and let me say this. As an NF member, that's not what I was about at that time. I wasn't out there gangbanging on the streets. We weren't supposed to be about that. NF members are supposed to be in the organized crime. Most of us are leaders, and that's what we do. And we when it comes to the gangbang mentality, we don't indulge in that. There's youngsters that we've already done all that. So most NF members, they don't conduct themselves like that. They don't get involved in those type of street level politics. And, even though for the most part I didn't, it was still hard to shake that shit. I still had it in my blood. You're still always going to carry that with you to an extent. But this situation right here was like, honestly, this dude was asking for it, man. And he pushed up on me, and when he see me get on the phone, he was probably thinking, "You know what? This dude's probably calling his boys. I probably should get up out of here. Maybe I'll go out to the car. Maybe." I didn't know what he was thinking, but I remember he was walking back to get whatever he came there to get, and then it's probably like a light bulb went off because then he spun around. Because when he said that, he was like, "Hey, what's that Southside like, homeboy?" When he said that, he kept on walking, but he turned, he was looking at me to see how I was going to react. That's when I told him, "Hold that thought." So anyway, he sees me on the phone. He probably had second thoughts. I don't know what he was thinking, but his thing was he was leaving up out of the store. So right when I got when I was finished paying for my groceries, in order for him to come out, he had to pass by me. So when I get my groceries, I grab my bag, I go to walk out of the store, and here he comes around the corner. And we met up right there by the front door. So when we're right there, again, he pushed up on me, and you guys already know, here it comes. We start going at it in the middle of the fucking store. We start throwing fucking hands in the store, and people are fucking tripping out in the store. A couple people that worked there came over and tried to break it up, which they really couldn't do much, you know what I mean? But they came over there. Somebody said that they were calling the cops to leave out of the store. So we threw hands real quick. We got him in, and he went out the other door, and I went out another door, the front door. Well, there's two front doors, but he went out one, I went out the other. We almost went out at the same time. He went out to the parking lot, jumped in his car. I went out, jumped in mine. We split. So, I mean, we both probably got in. We got him in real quick. It wasn't no full-fledged. It was just like he threw a couple fucking punches. I threw a couple, and that was the extent of it. But I would run into this individual later in the Santa Clara County Jail. So they called him Triste. And maybe a lot of you Southsiders, upstaters from San Jose know who I'm talking about. He's a big, tall cat, was a banger, had a history of putting in a lot of work out there in San Jose, ended up going down, getting convicted of a couple murders out there, was in the county jail for a long time. We ended up running into each other. So at one point, I was in an observation cell in Second East. They ended up bringing him in, and I didn't make the connection at that time. I didn't think that this was the same individual that I had gotten into with at that grocery store until he moved in that other observation cell. And, because we were both there, we were both in the ob cell, and, just both in the same situation, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, man, I had found out he was a Southsider before he even said anything, but I still reached out to him as a gesture of respect. Hey, you need anything? You good? You got everything that you need over there? You need some reading material? I've been here for a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He gets back at me. I know who you are. He's like, bro, once we really opened up, so he didn't come right out and tell me at first, but tell you guys like this. So one night on one occasion, I had a bottle of Bacardi 151. I had it brought into the jail, and it was poured in a bag, and it was a whole fucking pint of 151. So I got at him one night, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to shoot you something a little bit, man. Keep it to yourself. He was like, we had football on that day. I'm like, man, go ahead and enjoy that shit. This right here, it's not all the time, but man, it's something to make your day a little bit better, man. So I shot it to him. He's like, damn, boy, you ain't no fucking joke like that. That's how you got it. So anyway, because I could hear him. If we yelled out the trace a lot, I could hear him. It was just on the other side of the podium where they used to sit, the COs. And they weren't there. They were somewhere else down the tier or something. So I'm like, yeah, man, it's all good. He was like, hey, enjoy that shit. He was like, hey, he was like, you don't remember me, huh? And I'm like, remember you from where? And he was like, you don't, out there in Campbell. He's like, Box, I know who you are, man. He was like, bro, I'm gonna just tell. So anyway, he got at me on paper later, and he basically told me that he was aware of my presence out there in Campbell, that I guess his hood had talked about it, and that they were aware that there was an NF member out there. I tripped out when he told me. He was like, bro, I knew that they were gonna shoot your pad up. And that was all behind either you or your homies socking up one of the little homies. But I knew that went down. It was like, it was something that was talked about before they even went over to your pad. I tripped out. I was like, man, small world. But then he told me, you don't remember me from I want to say it's a Safeway, man. He was like, you don't remember me from Safeway, huh? That day that I walked in, and I'm like, nah, bro, that was you. And he was like, that was me, man. And You know, it wasn't personal. It was, hey, he was pushing his line, I was pushing mine. We ended up crossing paths, and that's just the way it was. But you know, he ended up getting convicted, and I think he ended up catching 2 hot ones and caught a life sentence. Later on, I would end up hearing that he was plugged in with the Mexican mafia somehow. I don't think he was a member, but he was one of the major contacts out there that was, you know, he had a little bit of juice as far as with his people out there in San Jose. You guys, you upstaters, if any of you are watching, you should know who I'm talking about. 3-state, big, tall motherfucker, covered with tattoos. Anyways, this was a short one. It's just something I wanted to get out to you guys. It's a quick one. Let's see if I can get that hat trick going one more again, man. Maybe I'll drop an Inner Demons or another war story. But again, it's a short one. Episode 44. I think I got it right this time. Or is it 45? Either one, whatever it is, just your boy B, and I'm out.